This video is sponsored by Game Toppers. Turn your own kitchen or dining room table into a premium portable game solution at a fraction of the cost. Hey everybody, another vlog for you this week. This one is in response to a couple of comments I got from the vlog last week, and actually one very specific comment, but I've also got this comment over the years, specifically regarding miniature painting. And I've actually had some of these thoughts sort of serendipitously kind of in the back of my head as I'm watching the NBA playoffs right now. I'm kind of a big basketball fan. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Next week I'm going to have a top 20 video. I'm not going to tell you what it's about now. Pretty excited about it. It's kind of like a redo of a top 10 I did probably 2 or 3 years ago. And so I've had a lot of fun kind of reinvestigating that sort of topic. And so you'll see that coming next week. And I got some other reviews and stuff, cooking as well. So like I said, this topic has to do with miniature painting. You can see probably from the thumbnail and the title of the video what it's kind of about. But what kind of specifically triggered my response and me wanting to kind of talk about it right now, kind of while the iron's hot, was I got a very nice comment from a viewer about how they really wanted to do miniature painting, but they were afraid to fail at it. And I thought, oh, okay, wow. So this really kind of puts it in perspective. And I've heard other comments like this, like I really want to try it, but I'm afraid to like ruin a board game that I have, and then kind of destroy it, and doesn't look as nice, and I've ruined it, and I've done a terrible job of it, and I really love this board game, and I don't want to ruin it, and all that kind of stuff. And I will just say, talking to those folks that are afraid of that, just know this: I get a lot of comments from people that have never painted before. This is one of the things that makes me like the most happiest about the channel, and just having the channel. And people say, hey, I picked up miniature painting because, you've been doing that, and you've normally been kind of more of a board game type of player. You've moved into miniature games. They've taken the plunge. They've started playing Frostgrave or Age of Sigmar or something like that, and they're having a really good time with it, and it really is bringing them joy, and that gets me fired up. So just know, if you're on the side of the fence that's like, you're kind of afraid to fail, just know that the other side of the fence is there, and there's people that have taken that leap, and they've been successful, and they have had a lot of fun with it. Before I get to kind of my main point, I wanted to show you one thing. I have the very, very first miniature I ever painted, and that is this little guy right here. So if you can focus on that guy, this is this little skeleton here. Now this is from the Reaper Bones Learned to Paint kit, which I have a video for. There's several videos about it on YouTube, but I'll put a link to that video below. So that's the first one I ever painted. And then roughly about 6 years later, I painted this big fella right here. There we go. And actually I won, it was a couple of months ago, I won kind of the Board Game Geek monthly miniature painting competition with this guy. I'm not saying that to brag or anything, but that's 6 years there. So that's 6 years of practice and, just working at it and having fun with it. When you say practice, a lot of times folks think of it as work, and it wasn't work, at least for me. So your first miniature is going to look like that, the first one I showed you probably, and 6 years later it might look something like this. So that's 6 years of effort, and so it's not an overnight thing. So just kind of know that. Just know that if you get into it and you like it, and I'm still really happy with this first guy. I still keep this thing around. I have some of the other miniatures that I painted at the exact same time as this, and I use them in Frostgrave and other kind of random games, and I still use it, and I painted it, and it's fine. And that Reaper Learn to Paint kit is a great thing because you can paint it. It's not related to a board game. You get 3 miniatures in it. And there's a couple of different kits that are out nowadays, but you get 3 miniatures in it. You get a handful of paints. You get a brush, and then you get like a little manual. And you can just kind of work through it step by step, like paint by numbers. It's fantastic. Now, the main point of this is, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and like I said, I love basketball. NBA basketball is my favorite sport. I've loved it since I was probably, 8 years old. And I remember watching the Lakers play the Celtics way back when with Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. I'm a huge Lakers fan. I still love people from Boston. It's hard. Some of my friends maybe watch this will know I'm just messing around, but I'm a big basketball fan. And one of the things that I've heard repeated by some of my favorite players, Michael Jordan's repeated it, Kobe Bryant has repeated it. And the one thing they have said, kind of talking around the subject but in the same way, is to succeed, you have to fail. Like, it is a must that you fail. So my kind of just expression to you is, if you're afraid of failing, don't be afraid of failing, because you have to fail. And when I read this comment earlier today, I said, you know what, I want to tell people about this sort of kind of advice that I've heard from these professional athletes that are just probably the best that have ever played that game. But I wanted to kind of quick do some Googling and YouTubing and see if there were some other things. And to me, it was all a bunch of psychobabble. And I didn't really like any of it. And I really don't like armchair philosophers and psychologists on YouTube in general. So maybe there's some bias coming in there. But these two guys have basically said the same thing, where you have to just be ready to fail. Like, you just have to know you're going to fail. And, don't like try to trick your mind or anything like this. This is just my kind of weird advice, from nobody really. But don't get in this thing where like you have to like envision and have like a complete picture of your success and all that kind of stuff. I think that can work, but that's good to like at the beginning maybe to get you fired up. But you're going to get to points where you're going to paint something or do whatever you're going to do, and you're not going to do it quite right or quite the way you envisioned it. That's okay. So you're just going to fail. You're going to learn from that. You take a step back and reinvestigate. Like, why did I do that? I was like, oh, well, I didn't spend time doing that, or I didn't layer it right, or whatever the thing is that you might run into. So you have to know you're going to fail. That's kind of the Michael Jordan aspect of it. Then the Kobe Bryant aspect of it is, he said that, and you can go look up the quote. I'm not going to quote it verbatim, but basically he was talking about the dream, his dream of being a professional basketball player and being one of the best that's ever played the game. And the dream, he came to find out, was not like that end goal. The dream was the work. The dream was going into the gym and shooting 1,000 free throws, or going to the workout room before and after practice, going to practice 3 times a day. The dream was the process. The process was the work. He was doing the work. And he said what happens is, you'll find out once that you kind of investigate in that process, once you kind of like just commit to the process of just letting it happen and putting in the time, your dream's not going to come true. Something else is going to come true. And I thought that was perfect, because you're going to kind of get into the process, and you're going to kind of fall in love with the process, not the end result. So like I was showing you here, I've got this old miniature here from 6 years ago, this stupid little skeleton that I painted. And I have this big old mega gargant, this huge giant for Age of Sigmar, which is just a vastly superior model, right? And just a cooler model. But honestly, when I take a step back and I look at these, I'm still equally happy with both of these miniatures. Because to me, I see the process that was there. I see, those 6 years are there for me. And that's the thing that I kind of value. I mean, the most important part about playing games is the games are cool and they're great and the mechanics are cool and there's lots of cool artwork and they're really fun. But the moments and the memories that the games can elicit and sort of act as a vehicle for everybody around the table, whether you're playing by yourself or whether you're playing with 6 other people, where it carries everybody, that's really the important part of the whole thing. And that's really the whole thing about, the process is the dream. And when you're going to end up at the end of the road, you're not going to end up ever where you dreamed, where you envisioned. You're just not going to end up there. It's just not going to happen. But you're going to end up someplace probably greater. And that's really the whole process. And the same with the painting. You're going to go through that process and you're going to end up somewhere greater. So kind of armchair psychology, being a little bit hypocritical, but that's my experience. And I've gotten this sort of comment enough of folks that, are a little bit scared to ruin a miniature and that kind of stuff. And so I thought I would just share the whole idea of the process. And that's really what it's all kind of about for me. So, take that for what you will. And if you feel like jumping in, definitely get that Reaper Learn to Paint kit. They're cheap, they're like $35 these days. So you get in, you got paints and stuff to use after you're done painting those 3 miniatures. And you can kind of slowly, bite off bigger and bigger chunks. So anyway, just a little bit of sharing. Thanks.